Hey, what's up, guys? So, I have a kind of a special video. This is really impromptu, but I kind of want to go over emotional eating. As if you've been following me, it's been a rather up and down week. I've had some great news, I've had some bad news. Um, anyway, the relationship shit, you know about that already. We don't talk about it. I passed some engineering exams. I just got in a car accident this morning. My truck's gonna get totaled. So it's been an up and down week, and in the past, most of the times, everyone's got their coping mechanism. And for those of you that follow me, we typically involves, food. We turn to, food to cope. And the biggest thing is when that comes on is you have to acknowledge that that's kind of your coping mechanism, and you can't tempt yourself, if you will. So the biggest thing about developing a habit in any sort, regardless of if it's overcoming binge eating or whatever the vice may be, it's you have to acknowledge when you're at your weakest point and when you're most vulnerable. For most people, if you choose alcohol or drugs or food or whatever, you're usually the most vulnerable when your emotional state is the weakest. And the worst thing you can do is tempt yourself and push your limits. That's not the point. You're not trying to, this isn't a competition of who's better, who's stronger, whose willpower is better, because what's the point? No one's going to know that, you're testing yourself unless you, publicly admit it. Most of us, like myself, we're too afraid to admit that, we had this problem and we don't want to talk about it. And, it's just not, that's not the way you want to go about it. The first thing is just acknowledge that that's your coping mechanism, and then don't tempt yourself. So, whatever that may be for you, if it's being alone in the kitchen and, just go ravage through the cupboards, maybe go out to the library or get out of the house and go do something, walk in the park, walk the dog, go wash your car. Just get out of the house and don't stay in the kitchen alone where you're likely to be tempted. Excuse me. Likewise, if you tend to get tempted, when you're out at restaurants or out at friends' houses, really try and find an accountability partner on some sort, if you can. I know it's kind of tough. It's kind of a tough situation. A lot of people don't understand it. I was blessed when I, had mine that some people understood it and they kind of try to kick me to the table. I was just too stupid to listen. That's on me. That's my own fault. But hopefully you can find like an accountability partner that if you do go out, that they can kind of like kick you under the table, like, hey, kind of cut that out. That's not exactly what you want to be doing right now, sort of thing. So in regards to that, those are like the what you can do. But the biggest overarching thing is don't tempt yourself. So we all have our weak points. For me, it was like being alone in the kitchen. Like if I didn't have anything to do and the emotional state was uneasy, I just turned to, if I was alone in the kitchen, shit was going down and it was going down quick and I was about to destroy some food. So, I had to learn, when you're in that state, James, don't be in the kitchen. So for me, this week I've been at school a little bit more, just keeping myself out of the house, out of that zone, because I'm not perfect, still get, try and find the coping. I went on a lot of walks this week, not outside. It's nice out right now. It was raining earlier, but you just have to acknowledge that. It's not that you're weak. It's not that you can't do it. It's just not testing yourself to your limits to where you fail and then you feel even more miserable. You're already in that weak emotional state. Why do you want to compound it and just make it worse? It's not going to be enjoyable. I've done it myself and it's not fun. I can tell you from experience, and if you want to experience that state, then that's your prerogative, but I'm not going to condemn that choice. It's your life, it's your choice. I'm just trying to give some tips to move past that. So if it's going out, find an accountability partner. And if it's the kitchen, try and get out of the house and do something outside of the house, something you're passionate about. Go swimming, go hiking, go walking, go biking. Go play an instrument. Go learn, if you're like want to learn to sing, go learn to sing. Just kind of get your mind off of it and do something that just kind of calms you. And realize that everything is passing, and every patience. And it's something I struggle with, and it will heal. And life is a roller coaster. It's got its ups, it's got its downs. This week for me, it's you've been at the highest highs, you passed a big exam, and then you've been at the lowest lows with other things. So it's just acknowledging that fact, and I feel like I'm repeating myself, several times, but it's really not as complicated as people make it out to be. You know, a lot of people, when they come to me for advice, they expect me to give them some huge secret, right? And the biggest thing is you just have to acknowledge that you do, you know, there's something that needs to be fixed, which is the first step, and then finding solutions. And some solutions that work for me may not totally work for you, like I always say. You know, we're not exactly the same person. My competitive nature and my drive to win that I made up for, you know, social events and making up this imaginary game, it may not work for you, and that's fine. But we can use it as a framework to devise something else. And the biggest overarching goal with emotional eating is it's a coping mechanism. And when we're at our weakest state emotionally, you know, we're more likely to turn to that coping mechanism, especially when we're tempted with it in our temptation zone, if you will, like taking an alcoholic to a bar in a weak emotional state. If they had a rough week, it's probably not the best idea because they're probably going to turn to that coping mechanism. But maybe instead of taking that person to a bar, you take them to, you know, a baseball game or something where it's not such a, you know, alcohol friendly event. I'm not saying people don't drink at, you know, baseball games or whatever, but you get the point. It's not taking them into that zone where it's more likely for them to falter. You know, and it's trying to find an accountability partner. You know, it's hard to bring up with someone, but hopefully there's at least that one special person in your life that you can really turn to. And at the end of the day, if, you know, you aren't fortunate enough to have that, just, you know, I can give you my cell phone number. I don't really, you know, it doesn't bother me. And I can, you know, be that accountability partner for you. And, you know, because I've been there, and there's several people that have messaged me on Facebook when, you know, when it comes time to that. And that's fine. That's, you know, that's why I'm here. And, you know, get a hold of me, and, you know, I'll help you, talk you through it. The other thing is, if you are really going to eat something, try and just, you know, eat something healthy at least. Like, grab vegetables, grab fruit. Like, if you're really gonna overeat on something, that just make it healthier, because it's a better decision. You won't feel as sick as if you ate like a pound of chocolate as if you ate a pound of apples. So, I mean, if you're gonna, if that happens, try and grab something that's a little bit healthier. That way, you may not feel as bad. But in the end of the day, you know, if it happens and you do accidentally make that mistake, it happens. You know, I'm not saying I've never done it. By no means have I, you know, never made that mistake. But the biggest thing is don't hate yourself the next day, because it just keeps like pushing you down that, you know, the roller coaster, that cycle, I guess. It just keeps that cycle repeating and repeating and repeating, you know, the binge and the restrict and the emotional state, and it just doesn't help you help get out of it. And you just gotta kind of just put the brakes on and say, all right, you know, push that reset button and just get back at it. So that's essentially what it is. It's not a huge secret. It's just not really tempting yourself and understanding where that temptation is. And if you don't totally understand, you know, where that temptation is, try to think about it. You know, sit down and, you know, just in a quiet room or something, and just kind of think about the past times that you've experienced it and go, okay, you know, what was I feeling? And maybe even start a journal. Maybe you're like, right, okay, so, you know, this time I did it, you know, I was, you know, I had a rough day at work, you know, my boss yelled at me or something, and I turned to this, and I was tempted because I was alone in the kitchen. Well, there you go. And maybe if you do that 3 times, like, you know, that's a key. So just try and find those patterns, and the biggest thing is just start working on it to beat it. So hopefully this kind of helps you guys out. You know, I've had, you know, an emotional week, and by no means do I say that my weeks are always, you know, perfect and at the top of their level. You know, they have their ups and downs, and that's just kind of how life works. It's a game of life. It sucks, but the game of life isn't always what we expect and what we want. Because I mean, I guess it'd be boring in some ways. Um, Looking back, the roller coasters are always fun. I don't know if that's the right word. They're always kind of enjoyable, if you will. But that's just what makes life interesting. Because if we always knew what was going to happen, you know, it wouldn't be the same thing. So anyway, keep kicking ass this week, guys. I hope we have another video for you here the next couple of days. And as always, if you have questions, you know, you can contact me below. All the social media links are there. So feel free to get a hold of me. Be real, be strong, be authentic. I just said that out of order. That's okay. It's the same thing.